Super Bowl week is getting close. Super Bowl day is getting closer. We are so excited. Opening night last night, didn't even know that was a thing because it's been so long since the Eagles were in the Super Bowl. So opening night, lots of Eagles Super Bowl talk, lots of Chiefs talk. We got my man Neal Coolong here from Sports Illustrated joining us to talk. Trending in the AM starts in 30 seconds.
Gets around in front. And Philadelphia has it.
And a very good morning, everybody, and welcome to Trending in the AM right here on DSM Media. We're live, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube. You know the drill. Like, share, retweet, and follow on all social media platforms, but make sure you do us that favor. Head over to the DSM Media YouTube page, hit the like button, the subscribe button, turn the notifications on. That way you don't miss a second of the action, and it's the best place to get interactive with the show. Your comments, your thoughts, your questions. As like I said, we inch closer to Super Bowl Sunday and the big day between the Eagles and the Chiefs. I am your host, Phil Stiefel, as always. We got Jason Voorhees sitting next to me today. And for the first 20 or so minutes of the show, I got my man Neal Coolong, Pittsburgh native, guy covers the Steelers for Sports Illustrated, host of the New Standard podcast. Neal Coolong, how you doing today, my man?
I'm excellent. I hope you guys are as well.
Oh, we're doing fantastic because we're actually in the Super Bowl, unlike Pittsburgh or anybody else. But, you know, I brought you along because I'm very, very curious tonight or today because we're super overconfident. As Eagles fans, it's very hard to have any kind of non-super bias as we're trying to talk and break down this Super Bowl. But the Chiefs fans are the same way. They're being extremely overconfident as well. And there's got to be some middle ground here, in my opinion. So, Neal, as an unbiased person, you've got no skin in the game, really. Could you try to talk us through, like, where is it? The Eagles are not going to blow the Chiefs out by 20 points. The Chiefs are not going to crush the Eagles, obviously. There's got to be somewhere in the middle that this falls. So where are you early on this week leaning your thoughts on this Super Bowl matchup?
Well, honestly and objectively, I'd be leaning toward Philadelphia. I think we've seen that all season. I was fortunate enough to be a guest on your guys' show earlier this season, and I was pretty adamant in my feelings about what Philadelphia was going to do this year. I'm not surprised, top to bottom, they are where they are. And I think we've gotten used to the fact that Kansas City is a regular participant deep in the playoffs now. So you're looking at two teams that aren't a surprise. You know, there's no upset here. There's no, Cinderella story, kind of like the Bengals were last year. Mm-hmm. Philadelphia, though, I feel has been more consistent overall with what I thought that they would be. And I expected them to be deep contenders. I'm not surprised that they're at this point, but they've gotten, I think, deeper as the season's gotten on. And I don't need to tell Eagles fans that. That's the biggest strength of the team. They're loaded everywhere. They have talent all over the roster. They're very well coached. Not to say that Kansas City isn't. I just don't think they can go quite as deep. I think they are a little bit easier to make left-handed, if you will, to get them out of what they can do well. And if we want to look at that, perhaps we throw the Eagles NFC Championship game aside. I mean, I don't know how reasonable of a comparison we can make between the two, just considering San Francisco was probably going to be down to their eighth quarterback with the way that game was going. More than anything, it's how efficient Philadelphia was and can be. I think, honestly, there was a point Nick Sirianni said, you know what, not that we've got this in the bag, but we don't want to reveal too much. We don't want to ask Jalen Hurts to do too much. Let's just lean on what we have. Let's get out of here with a win, and let's get to Arizona. I think they had the ability to do that. Kansas City, in my opinion, should have lost that game. I mean, they didn't play particularly well. I'm a huge fan of Lou Amaruto's defense. I think what they can do really puts any offense at a disadvantage. And Kansas City was exposed for a large part of that game. They needed a heroic performance from Patrick Mahomes to win that. And now they're going to be down McCole Hardman. So you put all those things together, Philadelphia just simply has more. And that's considering both quarterbacks in this game were injured to some degree leading into the conference championships. It's not a question of who's going to heal faster. I just think that with an injury situation on both sides, Philadelphia has a much more, a bigger advantage than Kansas City would, even with what we saw from Patrick Mahomes, which was otherworldly. I don't think that gets enough credit.
I think that's kind of, one of my points that I've been trying to keep in my head, but my fandom keeps getting in the way. Is you said it perfectly. It was a heroic effort from Mahomes 2 weeks ago. Well, it's Patrick Mahomes. It's Andy Reid. They are very top heavy. So even if the Eagles are the quote unquote better team, deeper team, there still is that factor that Andy Reid is one of the best coaches of all time. Patrick Mahomes is already this early in his career one of the best quarterbacks of all time, and you've got the second best, maybe eventually the best tight end in the history of football. Is that enough to win a Super Bowl? And kind of in my mind, I don't talk about it enough, but it is enough in my mind to win a Super Bowl.
I mean, they're playing in the Super Bowl. They earned it. I don't want to suggest that Cincinnati, I'm choosing my words carefully. Cincinnati had ample opportunities to win that game late and probably should have, up to and including you at best gave up a run to a quarterback on a badly sprained ankle for a first down, and then you tacked on 15 yards on top of that. To suggest that wasn't a penalty, I think is complete nonsense. They're never not going to call that. They gave Kansas City every opportunity to win that game. That was with the people that you just mentioned. I think Philadelphia wouldn't have lost that game. There's no way. The way that they are able to swarm, play defense, make plays all over their roster. I agree 1,000% though. This is, Hall of Fame worthy already. First ballot, unanimous selection, Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, who I think is the best tight end of all time. These are great players. In no way do I expect them to be shut out in any way of this game, but I just think Philadelphia has more. They're going to get the one more drive. They're going to get, one more scoring drive throughout the game that I don't think Kansas City is going to have enough to be able to do. It'll be close. I think it'll be competitive, but Philadelphia just has a little bit more. I'm not surprised that most analytics are showing us how tight this game is going to be, probably decided by a field goal. And I think both fan bases have, ample reason to be confident in their team's likelihood of winning this game. I just think Philadelphia is going to be able to put together a few more plays that Kansas City doesn't quite have the depth to be able to do on the offensive side. And I think Philadelphia has, minus Chris Jones, although I would take, former Steeler Javon Hargrave any day, they have more firepower defensively. The Philadelphia does. Chris Jones is a great player, worthy defensive player of the year candidate, but Philadelphia has the dudes to be able to make those big plays at the end. And at some point, Mahomes is going to have to push. That pass rush is lethal in Philadelphia. He's going to be more prone to some mistake at some point. Philadelphia can take advantage of that.
Yeah. So last night, I don't even know, like maybe I missed something. This whole opening night festivities thing and the media availability being prime time. It wasn't like that when the Eagles were in the Super Bowl in February 2018. I don't know when that all started, but I was locked onto my TV screen. I was thoroughly entertained with all this. But you notice something like the Chiefs, Mahomes, Reed, they have them all up on stage, calm, collected. They've been there, done this before. Jalen Hurts is in his second year starting and looks as calm or more comfortable than even Patrick Mahomes in that limelight. Have you ever seen a quarterback that young, that inexperienced, just have this I belong, even though everyone has told him his whole career, you don't belong. And yet here he is, 24, 25 years old, on the biggest stage of them all. Yeah, that's right. I belong here. And it kind of blows my mind how calm and collected he was last night in that situation.
I agree with that. And that's why I like Jalen Hurts so much. I like the path that he was put on. I remember I was out with some work colleagues way back in the day when he got benched at halftime. And my first thought was the kid that's coming in better be something remarkable, because they wouldn't have benched him at halftime unless that was kind of the plan. One way or another, they were looking to get the other kid more time in the game. I don't think Hurts deserved that necessarily. The path that set him on, though, is exactly what he's speaking to, in my opinion. I shouldn't, try to get in his head, but it's the experience that he now has. That Mahomes, yes, he has plenty of experience of his own. The reason Hurts is up there, though, is basically he's saying, yeah, you want to tell me again I can't do it? I'm kind of past the point now. You've constantly told me that I can't do it, yet here I am. And you're asking me the same question again. You're not listening to my answer. You're not paying attention to what's going on. It should make him even more confident, not overconfident, but what can't this kid handle? And I think that's what Jeffrey Lurie was saying yesterday when he said, like, he's done more than enough to earn a contract. It's not even a question. There's no way you're getting rid of him. You pay him whatever. I mean, they'll work that out. But it's largely because of the path that he had to take to get where he is. He's not a premium guy. He never was a premium guy. He got benched in college. I mean, how many Super Bowl quarterbacks got benched in college? I don't care who was replacing him. It's a testament to not just his ability, which was always there, and I'm not trying to downplay Tua or anything like that, but it shows the level of perseverance that he has. He is going to be able, as Mike Tomlin would say, he's not going to blink in any situation you put him in. You put him under the stadium lights, he's going to take care of things the way that he does. I just don't see him not being able to respond to whatever it is that comes up. People praise Joe Burrow for this all the time. I think Jalen Hurts is very similar. His pulse doesn't rise in the situations. And I'm not saying that he is like fantastically talented overall. It's just that extra. And I'm not somebody that's into the soft kind of, internet qualities of somebody. He has that mental fortitude to be able to stand up to the situation that he's in. And for me, that's the kind of thing I'll bet on. I'll take that guy all day because I can put a team around him that can get them into position and let him be the MVP that he is. That to me is really what the most valuable player should be. This is a guy that is playing above everybody else, but he's taken everybody else with him. And Philadelphia is a much better team because of Jalen Hurts, and it's because of the path that he was put on, not just the obvious physical talent that he has, which isn't otherworldly, but he was asked to do more to get into the position that he's in. He should have supreme confidence in himself.
I mean, we're getting off the subject a little bit here of the Super Bowl itself, but then everything that you just said there about Jalen Hurts, it makes sense. And we've been talking about this on the show the entire season, the same exact topics. Then why is there so many people in the national media that are so anti-Jalen Hurts? He's not good enough. He's a system quarterback. He's never going to – the team carried him there. Why is there so much negativity in the national media directed towards Jalen Hurts then? If everything you said is true, and I know I speak for Jason, we agree with you on that, and we sound like biased Eagles fans when we say it, coming from somebody else, it's great. But across the board, there's a lot of hate towards Jalen Hurts.
Simply put, he's not 6'5". He's not a prototype. He doesn't have circus plays. He's not that type of player, but if people want to not like the fact that he's not your prototypical draft dork dream, fine. I'll argue the results all day. In case you haven't paid attention, the reason Philadelphia is as good as they are is because they have embraced where the league is going. And we all praise Lamar Jackson up and down. All right, well, Jalen Hurts did this, maybe not to the individual level that Lamar did, but he played better with what was around him. And he has. And they're both going to be MVPs. I'm not going to try to break this down in like a binary way and say it's because he runs the ball and this and that. But how big of a weapon is that? I can speak to this as a Steelers fan. Last 2 seasons before this past one, I watched a quarterback that couldn't move 3 feet. Then I saw a quarterback that loved to move around, and he got 2 concussions in 8 weeks. Having a quarterback that has the ability to gain yards and not get injured in doing it is a huge advantage to your offense. That extends drives. That ends up taking what should be a 3 and out into a 7-play drive that results in 3 points. You add that up over the season, he's worth an additional 30 points overall. That's a significant advantage. If he's not getting that with 65-yard lasers like Justin Herbert, okay. I mean, I can see the idea that he doesn't quite have the qualities that we love to see, that's necessarily fun to see, but he's extremely difficult to defend. He's very smart. There's a lot of different things that he can do within an offense, and that's what Philadelphia has capitalized on. They had to. That was the position that they were in. And I'm not coming on here to blow sunshine up anybody's asses. It's the idea, though, that Philadelphia is a team, and dig through history, you're not going to find this. They won a Super Bowl with a different coach and a different quarterback 5 years ago. How many times has that happened? When you have to change out your coach and your quarterback, you're not going to the Super Bowl in 5 years. It doesn't happen. After you went to one, that doesn't happen. What's that like? Where's New England in all of this? They still have their coach. They lost their quarterback. They're a completely mediocre team now. Pittsburgh, the same thing happened to them. They were never able to get back. They kept their coach and their quarterback. You're getting the same thing with Kansas City. They're getting repeat performances over and over again with the coach and the quarterback. And obviously they're really good. But Philadelphia was able to harness what they were given and make the most out of it. I think that kind of battle-testedness, if that's a word, it speaks very highly to their vision and their ability to play football within the context that we are seeing today. And they're the best at it, top to bottom. I haven't gotten into roster construction, how genius that is and what they've been able to do. I was yelling at right where I'm sitting right now at the TV when Philadelphia somehow acquired A.J. Brown from Tennessee. It's like, really? You don't want that guy, huh? That's all he costs? Okay, fine. They're able to capitalize on market inefficiencies, and they do it consistently. They are the model of how to win in today's NFL. So to suggest that Jalen Hurts is a system player, in my opinion, is a high compliment. They just don't know why.
It's funny because you say that all this stuff about Jalen Hurts, and Freddie jumping in saying he doesn't put up the sexy numbers. Well, he did have A.J. Brown with over almost 1,500 yards.
Yeah, I was going to
Devontae
say.
Smith put up, Jason, was he 1,100 or 1,200 yards receiving?
1,100.
1,100 yards. So he had two receivers over 1,100 yards. That's sexy numbers to me. When you have two wide, that doesn't happen often in the NFL, where you have two wide receivers on the same team over 1,100 yards. So there are still some, sexy numbers. And then, Neal, to what you said about, the team with a new quarterback and a new coach back in the Super Bowl 5 years later, it's not like the Eagles even took the easy path or the cheap path. They didn't go out and get Russell Wilson. Yep. They didn't go out and trade for Aaron Rodgers or whoever big name established quarterback was out there. They went and found another young quarterback, redeveloped him like this, and got him to the Super Bowl Jalen Hurts just took over last year as a full-time starter. So 2 years.
Second round guy.
Right back in it.
Second round guy. You can't state that enough. How valuable is that? Teams are giving away generations of draft picks, and they're guaranteeing entire contracts to people of, how should I put this, dubious character. That's the value of a quarterback. What does Philadelphia do? We'll get him on day 2. We'll find the guy that we need. We'll develop him because this guy has the traits that we want. He doesn't have a cannon arm, but all he does is complete passes. All he does is run the ball when we need him to run the ball. He's making good decisions with the football. This is what we want. And the reason I'll say this, one, I find it incredibly ironic that sexy has turned into fantasy football, which was never the case back in the day. There was no equation between that term and in that concept. But today, that's what you look at. The quarterback's numbers don't suggest this, but exactly as you put it, they've got 2 stud wide receivers. I mean, Devontae Smith is one of the most talented receivers in the league. He's incredible. I love A.J. Brown. I would give anything to have that guy on my team. They went out and found the dudes that they need to make things happen. And what do? They make them play big. They go down the field. So Hurts is basically saying, I've got studs on the outside that I have confidence with. I'm going to get the ball to them. If not, I'm going to find something underneath or I'm going to run. Seems simple, right? But he does that consistently. He doesn't force bad throws often. That's not a part of his game. He has supreme confidence in what they're doing, and they've coached him up very well to be in position to succeed on a play-to-play basis. It just doesn't happen that way across the league. And again, not to rip on Lamar Jackson, but watch him. He doesn't know what he wants to do. They haven't figured out the right weapons for him down the field, and they can't play the game the way that they need to, in my opinion, anyway. The advancing NFL is really your strong-armed, mobile quarterback who can throw the ball accurately deep, and you have guys that can make plays deep down the field. You do that. If it's not there, run. Get down. Don't get hit. Use the rules to your advantage. Just continue to go until they give up something deep. And I say that, I think the score was 86-0 after 9 possessions against Pittsburgh. It was the same thing. Every time there was something deep, he just hit it. It was the simplest game plan you've ever seen. And Philadelphia has the ability to do that consistently. And it's because their quarterback just simply makes good decisions. If that's not considered sexy, okay, fine. Winning should be considered sexy. And that's why they're in the position that they're in.
I mean, and you spend a lot of time talking about Jalen Hurts, and we've got Nick Sirianni versus Andy Reid, two, opposite ends of the spectrum, coaching wise as well, experience factor wise. But in Pittsburgh, where you cover the Steelers, you have Mike Tomlin, who has established a great culture there for a long, long time. Actually, the whole organization has established a culture. It's why you've had so few coaches in the history of that team. And we've been spending a lot of time talking about the culture of the Eagles, Jeffrey Lurie. We might have gone through a few more coaches than Pittsburgh, but Nick Sirianni, I want to speak on specifically, get your thoughts on him. The fact that he could come in here and establish the culture where everyone buys into a guy that nobody even heard of 2 years ago. When he was interviewing at this point 2 years ago for the Eagles job, no one had any clue who Nick Sirianni was. At his opening press conference, no one had any clue who this guy was, and everybody was criticizing how bad he was at the press conference. And now he's got these guys within 2 short years believing and buying into him and his system and his culture. And I don't know about you, but I love coaches that don't call plays because they're more focused on the team than what's the next play I'm going to call. And I think that's all come into the factor here. Thoughts on Nick Sirianni and how he's gotten some pretty big name veterans like the Kelce and the Fletcher Cox of the world to buy in so quickly to what he is doing here?
I think a large part of culture, this sounds generic, I know, but it's a reflexive thing. It's going to start with your ownership because they're the ones hiring everybody, and it's the right amount of influence. They're not going to be involved necessarily in the day-to-day stuff, but they're going to empower the general manager, who really should be in charge of everything. That's another part to bring up to this. The head coach calling plays. What about the general manager being on the same line as the head coach, both reporting into the ownership? In my opinion, structure needs to start at a top and it needs to end at a bottom. You can't have too much redundancy across one line on an organizational chart. That's not leadership. You need to trust the people who are below you to do the things that you're asking them to do. And that's when you get full buy-in from everybody. And it seems like Philadelphia has the ability to do that. And that's how, keep in mind, I have nothing but respect for Doug Peterson. I think he did a phenomenal job this year in Jacksonville. Not at all surprised. I'm not at all surprised. When Jacksonville put an adult in the room, they have talent. They're able to get where they need to go when you have proper leadership. Sirianni has those same types of traits. And I think in the end, Howie Roseman knows what he wants, and he's going to go out and get it, regardless of what anybody else is saying. They can find somebody who fits in with what they do, who's going to accept his role in that and work to, I hate to use this term, especially on a Philadelphia show, but he's going to work the process in the direction that they want it to go. And that starts at the top. You have to empower the people below you to live like that, and then have those people respect what you've told them to do, respect the authority that you've been given, and pass that on to the next person under, a tighter definition of what that is. Sirianni fits in well with that. I think that's what they interview. I think, yes, there's a lot to be said today about offensive scheme. It definitely has a lot of value, which is why if he didn't come from Sean McVay in some way, we're not excited about him as a coach. That's just kind of the way it goes. We know very little about what it takes to be a head coach, what's going to make a good head coach. The gap between what the teams, inside teams, feel makes a good head coach versus what we think is massive. It's absolutely huge. When you have the ability to say, this guy's a fit, we're not going to make a linear decision, as in this guy's number one, this guy's number two. He fits with what we do. I don't care where he sits on some ranking list. He's going to do the things that we need the head coach to do. And he's going to be a part of a team, and he's going to help us build a team. That's culture. Okay. Culture is a corporate buzz term that doesn't really have tangible reason, but in the end, it's harmony. It's about getting everybody together on what you believe is the best thing to do with a team. And in my opinion, what they really look for is a coach that could come in and win without premium talent at the premium positions. They had to go out and find it. They drafted really well. They made excellent free agency decisions. They got lucky with some really stupid teams trading to them for, whatever it is that they're giving them. We know that because they're playing in a Super Bowl. They're favorites in the Super Bowl, and they have 2 first-round draft picks. I mean, they fleeced the league. This is all because they set this up, not specifically, but to say, we're going to do what we do. This is the concept of market inefficiency. We're going to exploit what other people don't see as premium. We're going to make it premium. Therefore, we're not going to pay over market. We're going to pay market for some of it, and we're going to take advantage of everybody else to get this mid-level that really kind of seems to make the difference between high-end talented teams and championships. And to me, Philadelphia has been able to hit on all of that, and it's because of the buzzword culture. They just said, We want to do things other people aren't doing. And I think Sirianni was kind of a tip of the spear of that, to say, I don't see the game in a different way. I'm not afraid of my quarterback running. I'm not worried about a second round pick at quarterback. We are not going to base everything that we do on the quarterback's arm strength. We're going to put the ball where it needs to go with a lot of different playmakers, a lot of different guys that have talent. We're going to load up on protection, and we're going to find schemes that teams are going to struggle personnel-wise to defend, and that's what they do.
All right, so I know I got to get you out of here. You're on kid drop-off duty, you said, so I got to get you off the air here. Don't want the kids to be late for school. I'm sure the kids wouldn't mind being late for school, but I'm sure you don't want them being late for school there.
She's going hard on Roblox right now. She's big into that. The tablet
I don't even
games.
have
Keep
kids,
your kids away from it.
I know what that is, even without kids. That's because I spend too much time with my nieces, and that's all they wanted for Christmas: cards to buy more Roblox or whatever. I don't even know what it means.
Two of them sitting right here on the table right now.
Yeah. So real quick, as you get off the air here, you don't have to give a specific score, but do you see the Eagles make the Eagles fans happy and win the Super Bowl?
I do. I'm thinking something like 31-27. I think a defensive touchdown somewhere in there. I just feel like, again, Philadelphia has the ability to make one or two more plays than Kansas City does. I don't want to rake Kansas City out and act like they don't belong there. They're an excellent team, very well coached, best quarterback I think that the game has ever seen. Travis Kelce is a dream to watch. Absolutely love the guy as a player. It's a fun team to watch. I just think that Philadelphia is going to be able to make hay on a series or two more than Kansas City will. Kansas City doesn't have the depth. They're not as loaded overall. They're going to lose a one-on-one somewhere, and Philadelphia is able to take advantage of that. I think like 31-27, somewhere in there is what I would go with.
Closer, but still the Eagles are the better team. I appreciate your time, Neal. It was great to hear somebody's voice that's not, directly attached to the Eagles, give us some, boost that we are supposed to be this confident here.
Yep, I think so. I very well could be wrong. I'll be honest with you. I've gotten, I think, all but one now in the playoffs, right, against the spread. So I feel pretty good about 1.5. Philadelphia is going to win this game. Just
awesome.
Rip me if I'm wrong. I'm happy to admit that, but I'd be confident in Philadelphia as well.
All right, so we got Neal Coolong. Make sure you follow him at Neal Coolong. Great guy to follow. The New Standard podcast, Sports Illustrated. Thanks a lot, man. We'll talk in the offseason. We'll get you on the show in the offseason.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. Thanks for having me, guys.
All right. Thanks, Neal.
Thanks.
All right. That was Neal Coolong there. Thank you, everybody, for hanging in there while we had that interview. We'll get to some of your comments here in a second. And we'll start with Stevens here. Jason, did you get a chance to sleep yet? I know the excitement is a buzz for both of us. I'm struggling to sleep as well. But, Jason, I want to ask you a question here. The thing that I took away the most from Neal's talking was, yes, you've got Mahomes, you got Andy Reid, you got Travis Kelce, and the experience of those three guys. But the Eagles' talent overall is just much better. And Neal believes that the more talented team will win over the top-heavy experienced team. Is that – I don't know what you took away, but that was the first thing that I jumped out. I've been taking notes here throughout the interview and all, but thoughts on that there?
I mean, I think you're 100% spot on with your assessment. I think it's exactly what he was saying. I've been preaching it, and I've been saying it since we were getting to the position where we were going to make the playoffs, that I firmly believe the only way the Eagles lose is when they beat themselves. So I could see the only scenario where the Eagles lose this game is if they turn the ball over. Say Hurts has a bad game and he throws a couple interceptions where – Miles Sanders fumbles the football. Like, if we make mistakes, we definitely will lose the game because Andy Reid will Andy Reid, we give him a lot of credit and deservedly so. But sometimes his deficiencies are like clock management and those kind of things. But you cannot ever look at a game that Andy Reid's coached where his teams haven't taken advantage of other teams' mistakes. So if you give Pat Mahomes that kind of thing where he's going to get the ball back and he has a chance to run down the field, there's a good opportunity that we're going to lose. So, as I said, I'm not sitting here saying that we are being overconfident, Phil, because I believe what it is we finally have bought into how good this team really is. I think we're not used to it as Eagles fans.
Right. We're used to being the underdog.
Is really that good. Like, we have a great team. Yes. Did we kind of get, I don't want to say lucky. Did we have an easy opportunity in the NFC Championship because of the injuries? Yes. I mean, I think anybody, you'd be a fool if you didn't say if the 49ers lost Brock Purdy and they lost the second quarterback, that they wouldn't have made it a more close game. But I still think at the end, talent trumps that, and the Eagles still win. So I think it's, everybody's focused on the well, they didn't have their quarterback. Well, how about focusing on how good the Eagles are? That's the problem. And you said it about the national media. Why are they against Hurts? I don't think it's necessarily that they're against Hurts. I think the national media is biased against the Eagles. That's a fact. We see it. And I think because Hurts happens to be on the Eagles, that's why, these people are.
So what you're saying is if Hurts was the quarterback of Neal's Pittsburgh Steelers, the league would be in love with Jalen Hurts. They hate him because he's part of the Eagles.
I believe that. I do. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, and someone could tell me that. But
so we talked with Neal a little bit about the experience factor of Mahomes and Andy Reid and all, and I mentioned how you said you didn't catch any of the opening night festivities last night, all the media thing, and I talked about Jalen Hurts and how he looks like he's been there, done that already. Like he looks like he is prepared for the moment. It doesn't faze him. And on a side note, talking about the media, who gives out credentials to Super Bowl? Because there were some dumb ass questions asked to coach. Like Nick Sirianni legit last night was asked, is this a must-win game? Like, come on now. Like, who's asking these questions? Who's giving out these credentials? And Jalen Hurts last night was asked by somebody, not asked, just told, hey, I wanted to use my moment to say, basically, I was wrong about you. I didn't think you could do it. But I just want to say, as a man, I'm sorry that I doubted you. And you just flew all the way to Arizona to interview on this, and that's what you come up with? And Jalen Hurts' answer was like, cool, man. Like, it didn't faze him. Like, other quarterbacks, something like Carson Wentz or Donovan McNabb would have been triggered by that. But Jalen Hurts is just, yeah, all right. So just,
Wentz. Yeah, Carson Wentz probably wouldn't want to answer the question.
Yeah.
He would probably say, I defer or something.
He replied, cool. Yeah. Wow. I mean, that's exactly what it was, But anyway, back to the experience part of it that I wanted to bring up there. They asked Jason Kelce about it because, he was asked about comparing 2017 to now. And, and the reporter was trying to bring up that there's a lot less experience on this team. But really, if you think about it, Jason Kelce's like, in 2017-18, we had Chris Long. We had LeGarrette Blount. We had guys that had been there, done it. And then this year, there's a lot of experience. But now you've got Kelce, Brandon Graham. You've got Fletcher Cox. You've got quite a few guys that were here still on this roster with the 2018 Super Bowl victory. So I think that maybe when I was listening to Jason Kelce talk last night, I was like, maybe we're making too much of a big deal about the experience aspect comparing the Chiefs to the Eagles, because there are a lot of guys, 8 or 9 guys on this roster that have played and won a Super Bowl. So they know how to handle this situation.
Yeah. I mean, I think, maybe there's something to it that there's less experience on this team than there was in 17. Mm-hmm. But if you look at the experience, it's all key leaders. It's all of the guys that are driving the bus. It's Jason Kelce. It's Lane Johnson. Mm-hmm. It's Brandon Graham. It's Fletcher Cox. I mean, I'm sorry, what's his name?
Jake Elliott.
I was just going to say Jake. I was going to say David Akers. I don't know why I was going back to that.
Jake Elliott was
it's hard to remember the kicker. But
the long snapper, Lovato, I don't even know his first name. He was here in 2018.
Yeah, so listen, there are guys, but like you said, I think it's overblown sometimes that, oh my God, they have no experience. Let's be realistic here. The Chiefs even though they've had a lot of experience going to AFC championships, they only have one Super Bowl. They have as many Super Bowls as the Eagles. So it's not like they're this team that has oh my God, they won 5 Super Bowls and we're
right.
Facing. It's not like you're facing the 1980s version of the Niners. So I think that's a little overblown when people say, oh, well, the Chiefs have more experience. Yeah, they have more experience. They do. But I think, as Neal said, and it's good to hear from an outside perspective, because as you said, we're so biased, and it's hard not to be because we're in this position. But it's good to see an outsider that has no skin in the game actually say, no, your team is the best team.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're not going to see that. You'll get a lot of other teams where the fans they hate the Eagles so much, they're going to say, no, it's not.
Mm-hmm.
Like Giants fans, they're not going to give us credit and say,
that's why having Neal on was good, because it's not like he was a division, like he doesn't cover the Cowboys or the Giants. He covers the Steelers. So, other conference, whatever. And he gives it that unbiased opinion there. But yeah, Greg Ward's on this team too. Yeah. So there's a lot of guys that have been there, done that. But I don't think we win. Well, we might win in 2018. I don't know. But we might not even get to the Super Bowl if Howie Roseman doesn't bring in a Chris Long, a LeGarrette Blount, guys that have been there, done that, because the experience wasn't there across the board. But they bring in 3 or 4 guys that had Super Bowl playoff experience to help get a team over the edge. And now Howie Roseman didn't have to do that this year, but he kept a bunch of guys. He could have gotten rid of Fletcher Cox this year. But having Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham on that defense with that experience of being in this big moment helps a Jordan Davis, helps a TJ Edwards, helps a James Bradbury that hasn't been there, a Marcus Epps. So, the experience, if honestly, there's as much experience, if not more experience, on the Eagles side of things. It's just the coach and the quarterback, which is the top of the board of this team. Every team's coach and quarterback is the most important, that doesn't have the experience.
Oh, absolutely. I think it's easy to get excited about like all of the big name moves that Howie made, but like you got to look at sometimes at the under the radar signings that are just as important. Like I look back at 2017, I look at a guy like Patrick Robinson. He made 2 huge plays in that playoff run, like huge plays. Like he doesn't make those plays, they might not win. That first interception that he returned for the touchdown, that basically set that game in stone. That like it put all the momentum in the Eagles' lap. And like I just look at other signings that he's made this year, like the Ndamukong Suh and Linval Joseph, bringing them in mid-season. Like, dude, they're a part of our rotation. That's why we're so deep. And you saw it in the 49ers game. Like, it didn't matter who we had out there. We were able to roll that rotation, and we don't lose our focus because we have guys that aren't tired. That's big. Like those kind of things, other teams have not had those options. Like they lose a defensive end and it's like, oh my God, we're done for the season because we don't have anybody to bring in. Howie goes out and gets these 2 guys that are like, okay, has-beens apparently, quote unquote, and they've made some plays like down the stretch. Like, so it's sometimes not just the big name moves, it's the small moves. So,
you and Neal both got me really excited right now. Because you just brought up Patrick Robinson's interception, and Neal says he thinks maybe a Patrick Mahomes interception gets run back for a touchdown. And I did lay $2 on both James Bradbury and Chauncey Gardner-Johnson at 250-1 to win the MVP of the Super Bowl. And if one of those guys has a pick 6 that wins the Super Bowl, that MVP might go to a cornerback or a safety. It's been a while, but it has happened. That'd be $500 in my pocket if that hits.
Phil,
you both got me real excited there.
You've had a mighty good year of betting. Let's just go out with a bang, right?
Dude, to anybody out there, betting, it's fun. I have fun. I bet like I just said, I bet $2 on 2 MVP candidates. I bet $5 to Son Reddick. Baby bets. I'm not laying the house mortgage or rent on betting, but try. It is so hard, but try not to overextend yourself. It is very easy on Super Bowl Sunday. You see all these prop bets, all these squares and everything else, to spend way too much money on Super Bowl Sunday. And I think going back to what Sean Brace said, he recommended when I had him on last week, that everybody get together, put money in a pot, and then one person place all the bets based out of that pot, and you all split the money if you win, but you all split the losses. That way you're not, overextending yourself. You got some skin in the game, have some fun, but also don't overextend yourself. Bet responsibly. I know we joke about betting on this show all the time, but it's very easy to get carried away on Super Bowl Sunday.
Phil doing his good deed of the day.
Yeah, I'm just trying to put some good vibes out there. So I don't even know exactly what Neal said, Jason. But when we were talking about the coaches and the culture, it made me think of something I haven't thought of since the opening press conference of Nick Sirianni. And Nick Sirianni said something. I don't even remember the exact line he said because, again, I haven't thought of this in a year and a half. but Nick Sirianni said something, and Neal Coolong made me think about it. And that's Nick Sirianni said in that opening press conference, he is not going to put round pegs into square holes or square pegs into round holes. I forget how he phrased it, one or the other. That he was always going to constantly adjust to the personnel he had to give the team the best opportunity to win. And I think talking about, having a flashy quarterback or sexy stats or, it's a pass first league, taking advantage of what this team is, which is a great run team because they have great trenches, blocking and offensive line and everything else, and kind of flew under the radar. But, Jeff Stoutland got extended to stay in Philadelphia long term. I think that round peg in the square hole kind of thing is exactly why this team has such a great culture and is winning and being so successful, right?
Yeah, because they're not pigeonholing. Yeah, they're not pigeonholing themselves in any position. They're basically going out and saying, we're going to have multiple good players as opposed to having superstars at every single position. But yet you still look at the roster and they have superstars at a lot of the positions. Mm-hmm. I mean, A.J. Brown is a superstar. A.J. Brown, probably a top 5 wide receiver right now. He definitely was this year. Mm-hmm. Devonta Smith, probably right there in the top 10. So mm-hmm. They have 2 star receivers. They have mm-hmm. Dallas Goedert, who is in the top 2 or 3 tight ends in the league. So they have that. But then you look at the defense, it's kind of spread out. Hassan Reddick came in and he's like your sack guy. He's the elite pass rusher that we were missing. But you have how many guys that it takes more than one to get to mm-hmm. 70 sacks. You look just across the way. The Chiefs have Chris Jones, but then you look at the rest of the roster, they don't have a lot of guys. It was the same thing with the 49ers. Nick Bosa was their sack guy, and the next best guy had 2 sacks. So it's easy to have superstars. I mean, that's part of right. But
what the point I was trying to get at is more that you've got superstars. You've got A.J. Brown, 5th, 6th best wide receiver in football, and he still had almost 1,500 yards. But they're not forcing it to him. They're a run team. There was always that rumor and that conversation during the end of the Doug Peterson era that Howie Roseman marched into Doug Peterson's office and said, "Why did you run the ball even though you won the game?" And we all bought into that. Howie Roseman's got to stay out of Doug Peterson's office. Maybe there was some false in that. Maybe there was a lot less fact in that conversation, because if that was the case, you wouldn't see Jalen Hurts run the ball like he does, feeding the ball 40 times a game to Miles Sanders and Boston Scott and, Kenneth Gainwell. They're best at the run. They still take advantage of their great wide receivers, but let's stick to the run because it's what we do best.
The 2017 Eagles, I believe they were the number 1 rushing team in the season, in the regular season.
But that was part of what the supposed problem was, that Howie kept telling Doug, well, you've got to throw the ball because it's a passing league.
Well, and listen, maybe that conversation did happen, but maybe when they started to fail with mm-hmm. Carson Wentz and the whole thing, maybe they kind of took a look and said, well, what did we do in 2017 that worked? Mm-hmm. Maybe that's why Howie Roseman kind of took a step back and said, I'm going to let my coach make the decisions. I'm going to do the personnel, but I'm going to let Nick Sirianni. Maybe that's why, because remember when Nick Sirianni first came in here, there was a lot of people, that Eagles fans, myself included, that were worried that Howie was going to be one of those micromanagers, and he was going to be okay, well, we have a young coach, but I'm going to make all the decisions. And remember all those reports that were coming out Howie's telling him who to start. Well, you didn't hear any of those reports this season. And I think a lot of that is, I think Howie Roseman is kind of okay, well, I'm going to let Nick Sirianni, kind of what Nick Coolong was saying, you can't have too much layers at the same. You have to have, a hierarchy, and it has to be kind of built, and that's what culture is. It's exactly what Neal was saying, that culture is the ability of a team to recognize who its leaders are and let them all have their voices where they work. And mm-hmm. I think Nick Sirianni, his voice is definitely ringing true. This team is 1 win away from our 2nd Super Bowl. And, you can point to so many layers and say, well, this person's responsible. But at the end of the day, we all say it. Football is a team sport. And this team from top to bottom is just on point. They're firing on all cylinders, and they're all working for one goal.
Yeah. Yeah, I love this comment from Freddie. He knows what he's bleeping doing. Real quick, Steven, I have no idea what this means. I'm looking over here on Facebook. I see diamonds. I see little things after that. I have no idea what any of that means, man. No clue. I just star the thing that I know I liked your comment, put up there, no idea. But let's get to this comment from KC here. They're very comfortable with doing their job. Like Jalen said all year, no one man is bigger than the team. And that part right there, no one man is bigger than the team. And that takes all 50, well, not just 53 men. How many guys are on the practice squad, coaches,
75
equipment guys? There's 100 people in that locker room on a given day. It takes all 100, every ticket person in the sales office, Jeffrey Lurie's assistant. It takes every single person buying in to that one comment right there. No one man is bigger than the team. And I think you cannot tell me that there's a single person on this team that doesn't buy into that.
I think he'd be hard pressed. We remember back to 2017, actually 2018, all the reports about Alshon that came out like that.
Yeah.
We don't have.
What's her name? Justina Anderson? Was that?
We don't have an Alshon this year.
Yeah. Well, there is no. There's no
finger pointing. There's no finger pointing.
I want to go back to that 49ers game, okay, in the championship when 49ers were obviously out of it. They started playing dirty, right? Some cheap shots. They were trying to instigate trouble, and Kayvon Wallace got involved in that scuffle there. The game was out of hand. The game was over. But for as much as we've bashed Kayvon Wallace, the player, not lived up to the expectations, etc., Kayvon Wallace, there was a chance that he could have gotten suspended for the Super Bowl because of the actions. But he knew, you could see on his face as the players pulled him away from the scrum, he knew, he's like, oh shit, I might have screwed up. And everyone's got to be all in on this team. And yeah, I might not have a big effect on the defensive side of things, but I'm a part of this team. I'm part of special teams. I'm a part of this family and culture, and I don't want to let the next man down. And I think that kind of goes to that. It's every single player, every single person. There's nobody bigger than the team. And Kayvon Wallace, even though he was instigated and pushed, could have let the team down by letting his emotions get the better of him. And that's what you don't see on this team.
Yeah, I just think they kind of follow their leader. Jalen Hurts is obviously the most calm, cool, collected person I've ever observed. I mean, I don't think I've seen a quarterback that plays with or that holds his composure the way that Jalen Hurts does, especially in like interviews. I mean, he's 24 years old, but you might as well say he's 40 years old, like as far as his maturity and what he brings to that aspect. And you can't quantify the importance of that. Like, you've said, I don't know how many times you use the word, but intangibles. Like that part of his game is the reason why this team is in the Super Bowl. I firmly believe that. Yes, he has talent, and we talk about that. We're not discounting that. But that intangible piece, that can't be taught. That's something that somebody's born with. They either have it or they don't. You can't teach intangibles. You can't teach, that's why a quarterback can have all the arm strength in the world. But if they don't have that, right off the bat, you might say, well, yeah, they might be a winner and they might put up numbers like a guy like Phillip Rivers, but they don't have the it factor.
Sorry, you tried to throw a little dig towards me that Justin Herbert, Phillip Rivers.
No, it's not a dig.
No, I know. I always get a little triggered when people bring up Phillip Rivers and Justin Herbert because, yeah. Anyway,
but I'm with you on that.
I know you're. I know. You're just trying to remind me.
I guess a lot of people don't see that. A lot of people just see, oh well, I want the guy with the arm strength. But okay.
Well, I mean, we could just use that with Philly. I mean, look, Randall Cunningham, Carson Wentz, they probably had more arm strength than Jalen Hurts, right?
Oh, most definitely.
Absolutely. Hell, you might say Nate Sudfeld had more arm strength than Jalen Hurts. I mean, he was, according to Ron Jaworski, the best deep thrower in football. But did any of those guys have the intangibles that Jalen Hurts has? No. I mean, so I almost feel like you can quantify talent. footwork, arm strength, reading the defense. You can quantify that. You can't quantify leadership because you either are a leader or you're not a leader. People either go to bat for you or not. They'll go to war for you. I mean, Lane Johnson, last night, and it kind of not wrap it up, but bring it back full circle in the story here, talking about opening night last night and all the festivities that were going on last night on that big stage. You got Lane Johnson playing with a torn freaking groin. He's literally being held together by Gorilla Glue. I am not sponsored by Gorilla Glue. I have mentioned their name. If you want to throw me a few pennies, I appreciate that. But he's literally being held together by Gorilla Glue. And he's out there risking everything for this Super Bowl. Now, yes, he's doing it for the glory and the team, but Jalen Hurts has got that mentality in his head that, dude, I'm going to literally put my groin on the line to win this game because that's the mentality that Jalen Hurts has got these guys playing with.
Yeah, I mean, they all follow it. Like, I just love the fact that Neal came on here and he, an outsider. It just makes me feel better about my own opinions, and how Eagles fans are feeling like, and it's just like, I use the word, like, let's just embrace it, enjoy it. Like during the NFC Championship, I still tweeted here and there, but I kind of tried to stay away from Twitter because I wanted to enjoy the game.
Right.
So we're so in tune with, like, obviously with being podcasters and like following the team and, and kind of being on social media. But it's like sometimes social media like detracts from being able to actually enjoy this experience. And that's what I keep telling myself. I need to enjoy this because you don't know how many times you're going to have. Like, obviously we went how many years, 50 some years without a championship. And, bang, 2017 we win and now we're back. But there's no guarantee we will be back. And I think of like my dad. Like my dad's 1 year older. Like you don't know how long you have your family members. That's why I'm like embracing this because it's like, dude, we're in the freaking Super Bowl. Like
we talked about. I forget who was on this show with me, a week or so ago, and I forget what word they used exactly. But I'll just paraphrase it by using the word justify. Everything we've seen and said, having Neal on, having other national people on. It's justifying everything that we've said all year long that, this team is really good, but, the national clickbait people, they may be trying to stir some shit up along the line, but being in the Super Bowl justifies everything we've said and thought about this team up to this point.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's safe to say that there's been, you go back in history, you'll find, those storylines where there were Cinderella type teams that made it to the Super Bowl. But for the most part, if you look at the Super Bowl, generally it's usually the two best teams, or it's the teams that were best down the stretch. Maybe it wasn't best regular season, but I think you can legit look at these two teams and say that they are the best of the conference. Like there's nobody that you can argue.
Right. We got Casey asking some questions. Who has the bigger game? Devontae Smith or AJ Brown? Well, I think I was going to save some of those kind of conversations, but we can dive quickly into these answers here. Probably AJ Brown. Bigger game, bigger moment. Not nothing against Devontae Smith. Devontae Smith has had some big games, but I think this is the game. If they link up big, it's going to be AJ Brown. We got Sanders or Gainwell, and then some defensive players. All right, so Jason, Smith or Brown?
I'm going to say Smith.
Okay. Sanders or Gainwell, the bigger game?
Sanders. Okay.
I think I'm torn on that one right there. And obviously I want the Hassan Reddick MVP since I, voted, or bet $5 on 35-1. So I'm going to go Reddick, but Reddick, Graham, or Sweat, who has the bigger game?
I'm going BG.
Yeah. BG did say that everyone's talking that he's retiring. He didn't say he was retiring. He said this might be his last game in Philly, but he is going to want to continue to play for sure. Cinderella story and that's a great point right there. Brown has had 2 quiet games. He is long overdue for a big game, and that's kind of why I'm gearing towards Brown over Smith for sure. I lost my train of thought there because we got those fun questions from KC. Back to this media night last night. Big extravagant thing. I mean, you got all these people on stage. You've got the quarterbacks facing off on stage, the coaches facing off on stage, dumbass questions from people wasting their media credentials. But I think the coolest thing that came out of this, Jason, I know you said you didn't watch it. I don't know if you saw my tweet about it, but Jordan Mailata was asked some question. I don't even know what the question was. But the response to the question was, well, look, Jason Kelce is the lock screen picture on my cell phone. So so if you picked up Jordan Mailata's phone and you hit the power button, a picture of Jason Kelce shows up on Jordan Mailata's phone. Does that not tell you what kind? We talk about Jalen Hurts, the leader. And obviously, he's the leader of this team. But I think it goes understated. And it's kind of crazy to think it goes understated because he's a legend. But what Jason Kelce means to this team, this offense, and specifically the offensive line, I think it goes not. It's praised a lot, but it's not praised enough.
It's brotherhood. I mean, that offensive line, like, I think Jason Kelce, once again, you talk about Jalen Hurts and being, the epitome of a leader and the intangible. Like, Jason Kelce not only is physically and performance-wise one of, if not the best center of all time in the NFL, he also has that intangible. And that it just goes to show you. Mailata has him as a lock screen. Like, that just tells you that he's probably Mailata's hero. Like, he probably did a lot to help Mailata grow.
Absolutely.
Jason Kelce. And those are the kind of things you don't see because it's happening behind the scenes. But, then you see an instance like that. And I know it's kind of a joking thing, but, like, in reality, like, what does that tell you? That he probably looks up to him, that he's kind of his mentor. I mean, I remember when Mailata first was drafted, people were like, what the hell is Howie Roseman doing? I mean, he took a 7th round guy, like,
well, I mean, it was a big, it was a 7th round pick. So it's hard to say a big risk when it's a 7th round pick, but it was a big risk, big reward, or maybe a low risk, big reward, because I know there was talk that a whole bunch of teams wanted him as an undrafted free agent. So they wanted to make sure that they got him because Stoutland saw something in him. But yeah, I mean, there was a little bit of risk there, but the reward of Jordan Mailata, and Jordan Mailata didn't even have his best season this year.
No, he didn't. He
had a much better season last year than this year. One final thing from the media availability I did want to touch on, and we brought this up last week when we were getting some of the conversations, the pre-conversations about this Super Bowl out. But let's just win one more for Jason Kelce. So he had So Michael Irvin on the NFL Network was going station to station and doing interviews with the bigger names, the Jalen Hurts, the Nick Siriannis, and he did one with Jason Kelce. And he did bring up, that retirement's been on the horizon and getting closer with Jason Kelce. And I do want to say, back to the original point that let's win one more for Jason Kelce. I don't know. Maybe you should go back and find the interview of Irvin and Kelce. But when I watched that, I got the feeling that this is 100% the last game of Jason Kelce's career. So we do need to embrace it and enjoy it and think about how great he has been for so long with this team. But this very well, the look in his eyes and his facial expression as he was answering, well, that day is getting closer and closer, I think is the way he said it, that this very well could be and probably is Jason Kelce's last game as an Eagle.
I mean, I definitely, I've already kind of felt that. And
yeah.
It's crazy. Like, they're taking his wife's OBGYN to the game. I don't know if you heard that, but like, she's due. She's actually due on the Super Bowl day. Like, that's crazy. Like, and then, I know earlier off the air, we were kind of joking in how you said, like, why is Jason Kelce's mom getting all the appreciation? And where's his dad? Like, nobody even talks about his dad.
They were talking on NFL Network last night how this is, again, the one storyline of many. The first time brothers have faced each other in a Super Bowl. And they put up some of the other famous brothers. You had the Barber brothers, the Sharp brothers, the Watt brothers. There were quite a few. And a lot of the brothers have played Super Bowls. Like both Barber brothers played in the Super Bowl, not against each other. Both Sharp brothers did, not against each other. It's kind of crazy. But yeah, this could be Jason Kelce's last game. Probably will be. But yeah, I think it's hilarious that the mom gets all the attention. Us dad, well, I'm not a dad. I'm a dog dad. But the guy's getting no attention. but I did research it. He doesn't want to be in the spotlight. He does not. Oh, Mark's saying their podcast this week had both of them on there. All right. I'll have to check it out for sure. Scotty checking in. I'll have to rewatch. Yeah, absolutely. It definitely appears like it. Like, look, I don't want it to be his last game. I'd like him to play for the rest of his life. You know what I mean? But we have built a system and a culture. We have Cam Jurgens just waiting in the wings, and he seems more than capable and ready to take over. And then you'll get young Cam Jurgens with young Jalen Hurts for the next 10 years as your center, quarterback combo. But yeah, this all intents and purposes looks like Jason Kelce's last game.
Absolutely.
I think it's worth a. I don't have any other sound effects other than a round of applause. I have other sound effects, just none of them actually really work for that situation.
Hey, real quick.
Yeah.
Can I give a shout out to our own Dylan Davis?
No.
It's his birthday today.
No, you can't shout out Dylan Davis.
Why not? It's his birthday.
Birthdays are overrated, Jason.
Birthdays are important.
Birthdays take a backseat to the Super Bowl.
Birthdays are important now.
If the Eagles weren't in the Super Bowl, we might have done a whole segment celebrating his birthday. But it's his birthday and it's Super Bowl week, so he can celebrate his birthday next week. Okay. Yes, happy birthday to Dylan. I will try to get Dylan on this week at some point. Yes, happy birthday to the man, Dylan. We're going to wrap up Training the AM. Me and Jason will be back tomorrow. I put out an interesting thread on Twitter, so make sure you follow me on Twitter at Beard and Knowledge of our concerns. Because, yes, we are overconfident at this point. And Neal Coolong gave us another reassurance that we're rightfully confident going into the Super Bowl. But I put out a thread yesterday on Twitter, and I want to keep that thread going today on Twitter about worries that we might have. Because, yes, we are still going up against a great Chiefs team with a great top-heavy lineup. What concerns us going into the game? So tomorrow's show, we're going to dive into that thread, plus any other news that comes up and any other stuff that pops up. So make sure you go over to my Twitter page. I'll retweet it out to bump it up to the top of the page after the show. Concerns we have. And there's quite a few things that have been put on my timeline. And I had one other thing, and it'll be a tease. And I wrote it down to talk about today. We didn't get to it, but I'll put it a tease that Jalen Hurts is 3 for 10 on deep balls since his shoulder injury. And one of those 3 for 10 completions was the ball to Devontae Smith that wasn't really a catch. So realistically speaking, he's 2 of 10 on deep throws since he hurt his shoulder. Oh, and Peanut, I see you jumping in here, man, at the end of the show. Don't worry. We're saving Thursday for you. We're pre-recording Thursday show Wednesday night with Peanut just to get him and Mark and my man NFL Jeff, the Birds Beer and BS crew on this show. So we're going to pre-record Thursday show Wednesday night and have a lot of fun. So another little tease there. But the Hurts injury tease, the Peanut tease, the cheater tease, whatever you want to call Peanut. We're going to wrap it up, though, there for today. Trending in the AM. Make sure, like I said at the beginning of the show, you hit the like button, you subscribe, turn the notifications on. You don't want us to miss a minute of the action on DSM Media or Trending in the AM. Make sure you drop your comments. Even if you're watching this show on replay, I go back and check them all. And I respond to them all as best I can. Everybody have a great day. Eagles week, Super Bowl week rolls on. We'll be back tomorrow, 8:30 a.m. And, dude, Jason, I don't care that it's Dylan's birthday. I'm not saying happy birthday to end the show. I'm saying go freaking Birds.
And Philadelphia has it.